Hey there, I'm Lindsay Lyman. After 12 years at Amazon, I learned a really powerful truth. Success doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Are you telling yourself things will get better when? When the project ends? When you have a different boss? When the economy improves? The when trap keeps talented professionals stuck for years. On this podcast, we're done waiting. I'll show you how to stop postponing your success and get the salary and title you deserve now, without working crazy hours or sacrificing your sanity. If you're ready to transform your career without starting over, you're in the right place.
You know that gut-wrenching feeling when you walk out of a meeting because you've realized your manager just got all the credit for the work you spent weeks on? Most of us have been there and it sucks. It's so unfair. And you're probably sitting there wondering if you should speak up or just accept it. When this happens, it's so confusing to know what to do. Well, here's the thing. This is going to sound harsh, but it's my job to tell you, and to be honest, before you do anything, you need to get really honest with yourself and look at what is actually happening. Because most of the time when we feel like our manager is stealing our credit, we're dealing with one or two completely different situations. And if you handle it wrong, it's just going to make things worse. So today we're going to break down what are those two situations and what should you do about it when you're stuck in a situation where your manager is taking credit for your work. So there's really two different things happening when you feel like your manager is taking credit for your work. The first one is what I call just direct stealing. This is when your manager literally takes your name off a document and puts theirs on it, or walks into a meeting and says, I came up with this idea. I had this great strategy, when you're the one who did. This is real. It actually happens. They are legitimately stealing your work. And when this happens, you need to speak up. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. The second type of way that managers steal credit for our work is what I call an organization reality check. This is when you do amazing work, your manager presents it to leadership, and the leadership says, great job to your manager. Now, don't get me wrong, this feels awful, and it feels like they're getting all the credit for the work, but here's the harsh truth. This is how most organizations work. Managers are responsible for managing the team's output. So when the team succeeds, they get the praise. When the team falls, they get the blame. But they aren't the one actually doing the work. Leaders know this. This is how it's set up by design. But as the person doing the work, it can feel so infuriating. So we're going to talk about what to do in both case scenarios, okay? Neither feel fair. First, what you want to do is you want to figure out which one of these two types are you dealing with? So how do you know which situation you're in? Here's 3 questions I would encourage you to ask yourself. First, did your manager literally claim they personally did the work you did? Did they actually say, I wrote this report? Or did they present your work as part of the team's results? Okay. So first we want to check in. Did they literally claim they personally did the work you did? Second, does your manager acknowledge your contributions in the right settings? Do they mention your work in team meetings? Do they give you credit in your one-on-ones? Do they highlight your contributions in your performance reviews? Okay. So first, did your manager literally claim they did your work? And second, is your manager acknowledging the work you're doing in the right settings? Third, are you getting recognition where it actually matters for your career? Are you getting good performance reviews? Are you being considered for promotions? Do people in your organization know what you're capable of? Okay. So as we look at these questions, if we go to the first one, and if your manager is literally claiming they did your work, then you're dealing with actual thieves. Okay. And we're going to talk about how to handle that. But if you answered no to the other 2 questions of, is your manager acknowledging your contributions in the right setting? And are you getting recognition where it actually matters? What you have is a visibility problem. And that's actually on you to fix. So let's dive into both of it. What do you do if your manager is literally stealing your work? You got to speak up. And I know it sounds scary and it sounds hard, but you can do this professionally without making it weird. Let me give you a couple examples. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone compliments the analysis and your manager just says, thanks, without mentioning that you did it. You can jump in and say something like, thanks, I'm glad the approach I took with the analysis was helpful. I spent quite a bit of time making sure the recommendation was solid. See what I did there? I didn't throw my manager under the bus. I didn't make it awkward. I just clearly claimed ownership of my work. Let's say it happens and you don't speak up at the moment. That's okay too. You can follow up afterwards. Send an email to the relevant people and say something like, following up on today's discussion about the Q4 strategy, I wanted to share some additional context on the analysis I prepared. Here's my recommendations for next steps. Right? This is you speaking up and highlighting the work you did. The key is to be factual and stick to the data and what was actually done, not emotional. We're not attacking anyone. You're just making sure people know what you did. Okay? So if your manager is literally stealing credit for your work, the work for you to do is to start speaking up. But if it's more of a visibility problem, and of course your manager gets the praise for the work the team does, but you're not getting recognized in the right setting, in the right way, now we got to work on your visibility. Here's what I want you to understand. Your manager is not your PR team. It's not their job to make sure everyone knows how amazing you are. That's your job. So what does this look like in reality? First, if you are not documenting your work in a way that creates visibility, let's start there. Before you start any big project, send out an email outlining your approach. During the project, send progress updates. After you finish, send a summary and learning of what you accomplished and thank people that helped you along the way and highlight the impact it had. Make sure you're copying all the right people on these emails. The reason most of these emails go out isn't because we're all curious, who were all the people that worked on this project? No, it's personal PR. Second, you got to get comfortable talking about your work. And we're not going to be that annoying person that's bragging and so annoying and always doing it. But there's a huge spectrum in between bragging and arrogance and annoyance and not saying anything. We want to clearly communicate your value. Instead of saying, I finished the quarterly report, say, I completed the quarterly analysis that identified $200,000 in cost-saving opportunities. You see the difference? It's subtle, but you're not just telling the task you did, you're continuing to highlight the impact of the work you're doing. That's what we want to highlight. Okay, and the third thing to keep in mind, if you've got a visibility challenges, right? Remember, 1, we got to start documenting it. You got to start talking about it. You got to be your own PR team. 2, when you talk about it, you're going to highlight the impact. And 3, you want to do this beyond just your manager. Your manager shouldn't be your only path of recognition. Help with cross-functional projects. Offer to present your work to a broader audience. Build relationships with people in other departments. It's your job to make sure you're getting the right visibility. Now, side note, one of the things I often hear people struggle with is how do they do this in a way that doesn't sound creepy? Because sometimes there's not a direct impact to all the work you're doing. And how do you know what it is you want to be known for? If you're listening to this and it's June 2025, come join me this month in my coaching program. We're doing just that. We are helping you get clear and confident in defining your brand at work. You have a brand at work, but if you're not choosing it on purpose, it's being created for you. So go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/join. You can try it out for free for 7 days. Come learn about the challenge and hop out if you want. But this is where we are helping each other get really clear on defining our brand. So as we're working on the PR behind it, we know the message we're trying to deliver, okay? But let's get back to your manager taking credit for your work. I think of it as like back in school. I hated group projects. I hated it. But let's assume you worked on a group project and there's 4 of us working on a project, and the teacher comes around and says something like, "Oh, the writing in this document's so great. Good job." And one person in the group says, "Oh, thanks. I worked really hard on it." Now, if this was the case and I wrote the section, I was going to speak up. I might joke about it because that's just a little bit of my personality, but I'm definitely going to say, actually, I wrote that part. Because if I don't, I've just taught everyone I'm okay being invisible. It's the same thing at work. If you don't speak up for yourself, you're training people to overlook you. So here's something you can start doing this week that's going to help you with this whole issue. Next Friday, I want you to write down 3 specific things you accomplished this week. But don't just write down the task. Don't just write down what you did. Write down the impact. If you're struggling with this, sign up for a coffee chat. I can help you with it. So we didn't just complete the MBR. We identified this month a $200,000 cost-saving opportunity and are implementing a strategy to have it live next month. Right? That's what we want to highlight. Doing this is going to help you see your value, but it's also going to help you get language to talk about your value without being that annoying, creepy person. So I want you to stop thinking my manager is taking credit for my work. That is just going to make you angry and frustrated and resentful. And if that was going to help you, I'd be all in. It's just not. Instead, I want you to start thinking, how do I make my contributions more visible? Because the reality is, in most cases, your manager isn't actually trying to steal from you. They're just doing their job, which is to represent the team's work to leadership. But it's also your job to make sure your individual contributions don't get lost. Hiding your accomplishments doesn't make you humble. It makes you invisible. And invisible people don't get promoted. Your contributions matter. Your work has value, and it's not selfish or pushy to make sure people know what you're capable of. So here's what it all comes down to. You can't control whether your manager gives you credit or not, but you can control whether you advocate for yourself. You can't control what your manager says and does, but you can control whether you speak up when it matters. If you are in a situation where your manager is literally stealing your work, literally claiming things you did, they did, you got to address this directly, because staying silent is just going to keep you stuck. But in most cases, what you're actually dealing with is a visibility problem, and that is within your control. Your work matters. Your contributions have value. You want to make sure the right people know about it. Look, navigating this can be tricky. Every situation is different, but the framework I've given you today is going to help you figure out what you're actually dealing with and how to handle it strategically. Get specific about what your manager is quote unquote stealing, speak up when appropriate, and take ownership of making your work visible. Your career depends on it. All right, y'all, you got this. You're amazing. We'll talk soon.